gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Marchant is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Mr. St. Almonds. Can you describe to us the trends in the OECD countries on corporate tax rates since the U.S. lowered the corporate tax rate as a part of its last big tax reform in 1986?
Thank you, sir. Indeed, the US and the UK in the mid-80s started the trend of reducing corporate income tax rates. And this trend has been pursued by almost all OECD countries, except the US, which now has the highest rate. The average rate in the OECD is around 24% for corporate income tax. The US is at 35 plus the state taxes. So the average is around 39% in the US. There is a distinction between small open economies and bigger, less open economies. And usually the rates in bigger economies will be higher than in the small open economies. If you take Germany, you are at around 30%. France is at 34%. But still, the trend has been to reduce the rates in all OECD countries. And Japan, which was quite high, higher than the US, has recently, last year, changed its rate to reduce it.
And of the OECD countries that have the lower rates, do all of them have a VAT tax as well? Or is the US the only?
The US is the only OECD member country not having a VAT system.
So if you take the complete tax picture into account in each of these countries, is there still a very large gap between the actual tax bill of the companies versus just simply the corporate tax bill?
This would assume that VAT is borne by companies where, from an economic perspective, it's more borne by the ultimate taxpayers who are the consumers. So I'm not sure we can bundle both corporate income tax and VAT.
Okay, so any comparisons throwing the VAT in distorts that whole equation, in your view?
Indeed.
The U.S. worldwide system taxes U.S. tax-based companies on the profit of their foreign subsidiaries. Most of our major trading partners exempt that kind of income. If the U.S. converted to a pure worldwide system, wouldn't that provide a tax incentive for foreign companies to buy U.S. companies? And that's a question for all the panel.
Maybe I can start providing the following response. You have no pure system, or it's quite exceptional. I mean, Hong Kong, which was referred to earlier, has a pure territorial system, but it's quite exceptional. But in most of the European countries or Asian countries, Korea, Japan, when they have a territorial system, it's a territorial system with teeth, which means that you will be taxing some of the profits made offshore when they are taxed at very low rates. And when you have a worldwide system, as you are having here in the US, you have exceptions, which allows actually companies not to pay their taxes because of deferral or because of other mechanisms, not to pay. So you have hybridity almost everywhere, and you have no such thing as a pure system. So what matters, I think, is the way you will design either of the system you can opt for.
I talk too much.
But it's absolutely true that if we went to a worldwide system, and indeed today with our deferral system compared to the system in countries like the UK, like the Netherlands, like Switzerland, when deals are thinking about being done, when companies are thinking about combining and they are incorporated in different countries, it's rare for them to think of using a U.S. company as a parent. And that's because it would subject the earnings of the non-U.S. company to the U.S. tax regime, overlaid on their own tax regime, and that would clearly be a detriment to the synergies of the that the transaction is intended to accomplish.
The problem is What Paul says about current law and current business practice is true, but the question is how will people behave in the new regime? If you had a worldwide tax consolidation with a low rate, then the incentive to be not a U.S. corporation would dissipate. So we really have to project forward to a different regime to answer that question appropriately.
The gentleman's